Hey guys, I'm Jonathan,
And I'm Deborah.
and we're here to tell you a bit more about what we believe. So, the question we're answering today is one of the big questions, one of the pillar questions, I'd say. It's a question that confuses a lot of people and leaves a lot of people thinking, especially outside of faith, but also people who are progressing in their relationship with God and stuff. They wonder, how can a God who is all powerful and good allow evil to exist, right?
Yeah.
We still have famines, we still have hunger, we still have wars in our world. Why does a God who's good and all powerful not just stop those things from happening? A God like that, they think, must be either inherently evil or he just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. So the question we're answering is, why does God allow evil to exist?
Yes.
Right? So before we start, I think it's important that we define evil.
Mm-hmm.
So evil is anything that's profoundly immoral or wicked,
Yes.
right? So to answer the question about why God allows evil to exist, I think it's important to first ask the question, did God create evil?
Yeah.
So when we look at the world as it is today, in the state that it is today with everything that's going on, we can't think that a good and loving God created this world, right? Because there's so much evil happening, so many bad things happening, that a loving God would not create a world this evil, right? But the good news is that he didn't. The God that we believe in didn't create the world as it is today. God created the world with the intent of having a relationship with humans, a loving, peaceful, and ultimately joyful relationship with humans, free of evil. But Adam and Eve sinned. And because Adam and Eve sinned and disobeyed God, they chose a life apart from God. They chose a world apart from God. So it's the selfishness of man that brought evil into this world. Because in God's plan, we were always supposed to live in a peaceful world where he was just in communion and in relationship with us, right? So a way that I think helps us understand what evil is when we look at the definition of darkness, right? So if you were to Google the definition of darkness, you'd get the result that darkness is the absence of light. And in the same way, I think that evil is the absence of God. So where God is not present is where evil prevails, basically.
That's a good point. Evil is a place where God is not.
Exactly.
And I'm going to go back to your example of Adam and Eve and them sinning and bringing evil into this world. When we look back at that, it really makes us understand also the fact that God has given us free will, right? He's given us a choice. And that's what I think life on earth really is at the end of the day. Life on earth is God giving us a choice. And for there to be a choice, there needs to be two paths, right? There needs to be one decision and there needs to be another decision.
Exactly.
And like a lot of times we look at the Garden of Eden where Adam and Eve sinned and we think, why would God even put a bad tree in the garden in the first place, right?
Why not just make them all good so that nothing would ever happen, no sin would ever enter the world?
Yes, exactly. But I think the idea of God putting that tree is him giving us a choice, right? He said, look, I have all of this for you. It's amazing. No pain, no suffering. Everything works in harmony, right? There's communion with me too. But you can choose something else. We're not programmed robots. If God wanted programmed robots, he could have built them, right?
Yeah.
He could have just put a bunch of people on earth who would only do good and only follow his instructions and would live, I guess, happy lives, right? But no, he gave us free will.
Yeah.
He gave
and
us...
I think that's because genuine love has to be a choice.
Yes.
And for us to genuinely love God, it has to be our choice. And he can't take that choice away from us. And he never wanted to.
Yeah, and he can't also implant that choice into us, right?
Yeah.
He can't just force us to love him.
Exactly.
Because that's not real love.
That's not genuine love.
So he gives us free will and we have the option to either choose good or to choose bad.
Exactly.
Right? And then I think it's interesting to look because he gives us guidelines in the Bible on how to live. And if we were to follow the guidelines of the Bible, if we were to follow the 10 Commandments and everything that Jesus tells us to do, then the world would not look evil. I don't think it would, right?
At least not on a human basis.
Yes. We wouldn't have murderers. We wouldn't have people hating each other, right?
Because the Bible says,
love your neighbors. That people would be honoring their parents all the times, right? We wouldn't have stealing. We wouldn't have cheating. All of that would go away and we'd live in harmony, right? The Bible gives us guidelines on how to live the optimum way, how to live a great life, how to live an evil-free life.
Exactly.
Right? How to live without wars, without suffering, without selfishness, without greed. But we break out of those guidelines. Us as humans sin and break out of those guidelines. And just to emphasize on this a bit, I want to read Romans 3 verse 23. It says, "For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God." So from this we understand that God had glory for us, right? He had a great plan for us that was free of evil, that was free of suffering and stuff. But we sinned and we fell short of that glory, right? What we deserve is evil, right? Because that's the absence of God, and that's what we've gotten ourselves into.
Yeah.
But when God gives us good, it's His grace, right?
Yeah.
There's still a way back to Him every single day.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is important to understand, that the evil that happens is the consequence of our actions,
Yeah.
right? And it's the absence of God.
So basically, grace is a gift that we don't deserve, right? So another point that we also wanted to touch on is something that we talked about in our last video, but it's about the fact that there's also a spiritual warfare going on. So that means there's a warfare between heaven and hell. And even though we know that God won the war, there are still some battles that the enemy can win. So there's still evil in the world because the enemy is winning some battles, right? So the good thing is that God can turn some of these for His glory.
Yeah.
And also, it's important that we remember, as we say almost every time, that God works in ways that sometimes we don't understand, right? And so in Isaiah 55, verses 8 and 9, it says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts."
So this helps us understand that God's perspective, God's vision, the picture that God sees is so much higher than the one that we see, right? We're restricted to time, so we see the timeline of our life and what's going on right now. But God is a timeless God.
Yeah.
He's seen everything since the beginning of time, and He will see everything, and He does see everything until the end of time. So I see like His plan as a giant puzzle, you know, and we're playing a tiny piece. Our puzzle piece is just playing a tiny piece inside of that giant puzzle that He's doing. And sometimes we don't understand. We don't understand why something like, why did this happen right now? Why did this happen right now? Why did this happen? But then we look forward in like 10, 15 years and we realize, oh, God was doing something so much bigger than what we thought, you know, He was doing something bigger than us.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes we will never get to see that. Sometimes we'll die without ever understanding why this happened or why that happened, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I think God can use evil for good, like you're saying. And other times I also think God can correct people and punish people, but that is not to be misinterpreted as evil, right?
Because again, evil is something that is incredibly wicked or immoral, and God cannot be immoral.
Yes, exactly. God cannot commit evil. However, I think He can sometimes correct His children and punish them in a way that helps them in the long run, right? Just like a mother, for example, would correct her child or do something to him that he doesn't really like give him vegetables, right? The kid doesn't really like that. He thinks, oh man, I really don't want to eat vegetables right now.
Yeah,
but he doesn't understand. Yeah, he doesn't understand that his parents are trying to help him in the long run because his perspective is really narrowed down, right?
Yeah, so basically God is not evil and He cannot do evil. So He may do things that we don't understand to correct us and to teach us something, but He does not do evil, right? So just to summarize a couple of things that we talked about, we just defined that evil is the absence of God. So where God is not is where evil prevails.
Yes.
And that's because of us, because of humans, because we defied God and we disobeyed His instructions and we decided that we were going to go our own way. That's when evil came into the world.
Yes.
And that's the trade-off for free will.
Yes,
basically.
we talked about it a bit in our last video, but the trade-off to free will is that if you want free will in a world, you need to accept the fact that other people's free will can also have a consequence and an effect on you, right?
On you or on themselves, right?
Or on themselves, yes. So, like for example, a political ruler, the decisions they make affect the people they're ruling over, right?
Yeah.
So they have free will. They can either do good or bad. But if they do bad and if they do evil, then those decisions can also have an evil effect on all the people they're ruling over, right?
Yeah.
And that's the trade-off. Like, if you want free will, you need to also accept the fact that some people will do things and their actions can affect you.
Yeah. You can't only have free will for yourself, but then all bad people not have free will, basically. So if you want to have free will, evil people are also going to have free will and they can also do evil.
Yes, exactly. So we hope this episode helps you guys understand a little bit more about why evil exists in our world in the first place. And like we say every episode, we encourage you guys to keep challenging what you believe. And we'll see you guys in the future episode. Bye.
Bye. Hey guys, thanks for taking the time to engage with us. All of our contents can be found on the following platforms.
If you enjoy our content, remember to like and comment. Also, if you have a question of your own, you can send it to us through Instagram DMs. We'll try to answer all of the questions to the best of our abilities. All questions will be kept anonymous.
If you found this video helpful, please be sure to share it on your story or to share it with your friends. They might find it helpful too.
See you guys soon!